Hello. Thank you for stopping by. I am TheGrayingTech, Justin Gray, and welcome to the second edition of Marketing Makes a Game. Today, I'm going to talk about where the idea for Hodgepodge came from and why I decided to include it in what is essentially a tech channel. So, growing up, I'm sure we have all seen how-to videos. We've seen them on YouTube, we've seen them on TLC, Discovery, etc. I am sure everybody has used some kind of how-to video from YouTube to do pretty much anything. There's a lot of content out there, and a lot of it's really cool. So I actually grew up spending a lot of my summer hours enjoying home time. So for those who aren't familiar with what this show is, it is essentially a home improvement show before they became highly productionized and had kind of fake drama and confrontation thrown in and all of the other stuff that you get out of those shows today, right? This series was literally nuts and bolts how you could work on things around your house. It showed me how to build decks. It showed me how to do air conditioning and air conditioning ducts, insulation and heating. It showed how to put up walls, build walls, do drywall, install faucets, install electrical outlets. The show really covered a lot of ground, and I loved it as a kid. Additionally to that, my grandfather was very much of the era of the general handyman. So he knew a lot about how to use tools. He knew a lot about things around the house and how to build things with his hands. That's actually where I got a lot of my woodworking talent and knowledge from, was basically hanging out in his garage and him showing me and introducing me to the various tools that he had access to and the different techniques that he was using to do it. So when you look at home time and you combine my influence from my grandfather, that's where all of this really came into play. The other thing that I was extremely influenced was technology. I loved to take things apart. Even as a little kid, I was taking apart my toys. I took apart a Power Wheel one time. I took apart anything and everything I can get my hands on, including my neighbor's riding lawnmower and several other things. I never quite figured out how to put them back together, though, and really needed help a lot of the times in order to do that. But it wasn't until I started messing around with computers that I kind of saw how the pieces started to fit back together. And for those who aren't familiar here, this is a Molex cable and an IDE cable. So you have very old ribbon technology there. I think this is a USB front drive that you could install in your computer in the front drive bay, the 5 1/4, and connect it to a board with the IDE and the Molex power there, and get your powered USB into the computer before those really were a thing, that they just had them built onto the motherboard. So I love taking things apart, and I had kind of a difficult time putting them back together. The last influence, and ultimately this is where Hodgepodge, I would say, came from, is this man. Now, I don't know him personally, but he has provided hours upon hours of entertainment in my life and probably a lot of other people's lives, and that would be Dan Reichert. So again, I don't know him personally. I have met a few of the former and current Giant Bomb folks. Never met Dad, but he certainly was one of my favorites on the series. And I will never forget this one episode of the Bombcast, July 22nd, 2014. I don't remember the Bombcast number, but that's the date it aired. And Mr. Reichert was talking about cooking. And he calls his mom up, and he's having this difficult time, and he's trying to explain what's going on. And she's asking questions and back and forth and back and forth. Before I finish that off, let me just say, the reason that this episode was so impactful is Dan and I actually have some similarities in kind of our background and kind of the things that we were exposed to as kids and the things that we were interested in. And I realize that if it wasn't for the little differences that we had, I could have ended up like Dan Reichert, not knowing how to cook eggs. Not only not knowing how to cook eggs, well, let me just finish the story. So he's trying to cook eggs, and he says, I put the egg whites in the pan, and I'm moving them around, and I'm crunching them up, and I'm just waiting for them to melt. And the way he tells it is, Mom asks a few more questions, and then it kind of like dawns on her, like, wait, egg whites don't melt. What are you talking about? So what Dan did was he took the shell of the egg, hearing that the egg white was the part of the egg that was more nutritious. I'm not going to get into that debate. There's plenty of people who are willing to. I'm not. He understood that the whites were the more healthier option, and so he was just going to cook some egg whites, not knowing that the albumin, the clear yellower liquid that surrounds the yolk and the yolk sac, that's the actual egg part that you eat, and the outside portion is the shell, which you compost or dispose of. Now, I'm not going to dump on Mr. Reichert about that. It's absolutely comes down to the things that you're exposed to in life and the things that you are accustomed to and that you hear and that you learn. That's how you know how to do these things going forward. And so that's where the inspiration of Hodgepodge for me actually came from. I still to this day remember that episode. And it's not because Dan's a bad person. He just wasn't exposed to some of those things. And you can hear in the Bombcast several stories where he's talking about trying to hang a shelf and not knowing how to hang a shelf, trying to understand how certain parts of the car work and how certain things like mortgages work. And honestly, I think there's a lot of Dan Reicherts out there who aren't willing to put themselves out there to ask a question that puts them in such a negative light of just, I don't know the answer to this. I'm going to throw it up on a podcast. And so kudos to Dan for doing that. And for me, what I processed what there was, there's some things that I do know. There are some things that I've been exposed to and experienced in my life that I could actually put it up on YouTube and in a fun format, be able to show and help people understand how to fry an egg real quick, or how to work on a car, or show that installing a power outlet actually isn't that difficult. It is something that you can tackle and try to take on. And at the same time, being willing to show my own flaws and being willing to say, look, I'm going to mess up in this, or something's going to go wrong, and here is how I'm going to try to fix it. That's what I'm doing with a lot of the video content I'm putting up. I'm not highly editing it and highly reducing down stutters or mistakes here and there. I'm trying to keep in as much of that as I can. I just finished wrapping up my keyboard recording and all of the work that basically surrounded that episode, right? Not knowing that, hey, I'm going to have to shoot 20 extra minutes because I got to go cut a bracket because it's not going to fit properly on the table. I could easily have just ignored all of that, but I wanted to show, much like what Dan and his influence here of, if you make a mistake, it's okay. It's more important how you react to that mistake than it is that you actually have made a mistake. So that's the influence for Hodgepodge. I really just wanted to have a place where I could talk about all kinds of random stuff, maybe put some good content up on YouTube, and at the same time, maybe show people that it's okay to make a mistake. Here's an example of somebody who knows theoretically what they are doing, still making a mistake, with a variety of different topics, and showing how you can still overcome those mistakes, or at the very least, not fret over it and just start over. So that's going to be Mag for the week. That was the influence for Hodgepodge. That's why I wanted to have kind of a little bit of a variety series inside of my channel. All right, you know the drill by now. Please like, please subscribe, ring the bell if you want to hear more from me, but most importantly, please share. Share this with somebody that you think might be interested in this kind of content. Share this with somebody that might get a laugh, might actually learn something, or if it's on the technology front or the game front, right, that could help me out in understanding more about what I'm showing. So thank you very much and have a great weekend. Okay, so honestly, this is a record scratch kind of moment. I forgot this man. This man right here, Alton Brown, taught me so much about food, so much about cooking, so much about how to get good meals on the table in a decent amount of time, and the science behind all of it. I cannot include an influencer list without including Alton Brown. I did have the opportunity to meet him. He was extremely nice, extremely personable. I went to the Good Eats Roadshow or whatever it was that he was doing. Great performance, really energetic, really enjoyed it. Highlight of my year that year. So if you have the opportunity, you have access to the Food Network or to the cooking channel, or I think some of them are up on YouTube and some other places, watch some Good Eats episodes. There's one that he did about how to make breakfast, which I think was extremely good, covers a lot of the basic things about how to prepare a good, quick, nutritional breakfast. He also has done several episodes on really kind of the basics of cooking and the basics of ingredients and how these things can blend and work together. So no list is going to be complete for me without mentioning Alton Brown. And with that, I'm out.